running against Virginia Foxx. Y'all can tell who is the more hated congressman, just from that reaction. And we have Michael Fanone. First of all, Mike is going to get up and, just kind of talk about, he's got some remarks he wants to make about his experiences, and then David will say a little something, I'll say a little something, and then we'll give you all the floor and you can ask whatever questions you want. We also have people on streaming. We have Zoom and Instagram definitely going.
Facebook.
And so we have a lot of people out in the cyberspace. So, let's get to it. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, good evening. How's everybody doing? Good. For those, many of you I'm sure know, my name is Michael Fanone. I am one of the many DC police officers who defended the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Some of you know me from that. Some of you know me as the guy that just won't shut up about it.
Yeah.
I wear that last one with pride because silence is complicity. I didn't think that. I didn't risk my life that day or take an oath to protect this country just to sit back while democracy gets sold off to the highest bidder.
Right.
Amen.
Or while the loudest voices in the room spew lies and tear all of us apart. And that's why I'm here tonight. Not because I'm a politician. I'm not. I'm a former cop. I'm a father. And I'm a guy that still believes that public service should mean something.
Yeah.
Amen.
And I believe in the truth. I believe in accountability, and I believe in courage. In voicing the concerns of everyday working class Americans who are angry and fed up with a system that has failed them far too many times. These aren't just campaign slogans, they're values. And I've spent the last few years looking pretty damn hard for leaders who actually live them. And that's why I'm here with Ashley Bell and with David Clayton. I don't just throw around endorsements like candy. In fact, I haven't endorsed anybody. I've been asked a few times, and I have, not so politely refused. I don't care what party you belong to. I care if you show up, if you tell the truth. You got to tell the truth even when no one's looking, and also when everyone's yelling. I believe we are past the point of electing folks who are just good at playing the game. We need people with real world experience, with grit, and with backbone. Ashley Bell and David are exactly those kinds of leaders. Ashley spent over a decade on the front lines of healthcare, in emergency medicine, primary care, and in rural hospitals where too many families have been left behind. While career politicians were cutting deals and blaming each other, Ashley was treating gunshot victims, helping overdose patients, and guiding families through heartbreaking diagnoses. She didn't just read about the broken healthcare system, she worked in it. And she saw how bad things had gotten. She didn't just complain, she stepped up. Ashley's also spent 10 years in the classroom as an educator. She knows that the best investments we can make for our children and for our economy and for our future, they start in our schools. As a father of 4 beautiful girls, I know firsthand the difference that educators like Ashley make in our communities. Ashley's the kind of person who knows that healthcare and education aren't talking points. They're lifelines. She knows what it means when the system fails you. And she's not running to climb a ladder. She's running because she lived the problems that she wants to fix. In Congress, Ashley Bell will fight to make healthcare affordable and accessible, not just for folks in cities, but folks who live in but for the people in rural North Carolina who've been ignored for far too long. She'll fight for teachers, for working parents, for kids trying to find their way in a country that's felt upside down for years. And she'll do it with integrity. Not because it polls well, but because it's the right thing to do. Look, I came here tonight because I believe in Ashley Bell. Because I met a lot of politicians who talk tough, and very few who actually are. Ashley's tough, she's smart, she's grounded, and most important, she gives a shit. This district deserves someone who listens more than they'll talk. Someone who doesn't just show up for a photo op, but stays when the cameras are off. Ashley knows the people in this community. She understands that safety doesn't come from fear-mongering, it comes from opportunity, from investing in our schools, our small businesses, and respecting our first responders. And she knows that patriotism isn't about waving a flag louder than the guy next to you. It's about defending the freedoms the flag stands for. This district, this country, needs leaders who don't run from the fight. Ashley Bell has spent her life in the fight. So let's send her to Washington so she can shake this place up.
Okay, one thing before David, I'm gonna grab mine so that I can let people in, you don't have to keep.
Okay.
All right, let me get into, David, you wanna go ahead?
Sure. Hi, everybody. How you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you back there? I see you.
Good.
I go by Empathy Tour online, or David Hang Loose Boomer. Yeah. I came up with the Empathy Tour by deciding that I did not like the life I was leading for myself. I was doing very, very well for myself in Southern California. I had all the toys, all the bells and whistles I could ever possibly want in this life, and I was miserable. I come from a long lineage of veterans in my family. My great-grandfather was a Rear Admiral in the United States Navy, commanded part of the Pacific Fleet during World War II. I am not a veteran myself, and I have typed that out more times than I care to admit online because I'm always being thanked for my service. Something about my look. I guess it runs in the family. But what I did do, which I believe should be every civilian's civic responsibility, is to care for our veterans. I spent 2 years of my life driving the country. I used my life savings of $20,000, sold off everything I owned, packed up a couple of Husky waterproof containers with camping gear, survival gear, and I planned on only going from California to DC to petition what I sat down and came up with called the Character by Integrity Act, to house homeless veterans finally, once and for all, because I'm 46 years old now, and for 46 years I've been told by our nation's leaders, we really care about our veterans, and not a damn thing changes. It gets worse. The 22 per day goes up every single year. The veterans taking their own lives. And it has always made me feel a little bit guilty inside, knowing that all of these brave men and women have already earned this life. So I decided to put my money where my mouth is, and when I was getting the blow off in DC, I said, screw it, I'm not going to wait on these rich cats to keep on telling me that they actually care. I'm going to start driving the country and passing out survival gear. I might not be able to house them. I might not be able to afford to give them money or get them a job, but I'll be damn sure that in the path of natural disasters or them being hungry or them being unwashed or uncleaned, I'm going to clean them. I'm going to give them a tent. I'm going to give them things, a fishing pole so that they can fish and let the game warden chase them till they're blue in the face and explain why they're starving our nation's veterans. Because not enough is being done. And all of us in this room, I can see all your faces, care. There's two things in our country that are upside down right now. One, the rich people don't give a damn about us. And the rich people are in power right now. And two, because they're actively doing things to harm us, it's taking away from things like being able to help veterans, our seniors, our disabled, children. There's things that should not be argued or debated about in common decency and actual patriotism in our nation. You know, I come from a time of Gen X. I see some younger faces, I see some younger, older faces. Let's put it that way. But, you know, I come from a time where we could roam the streets free at night, not worry about trafficking like we do today, having a president that is allegations of trafficking of his own right now, and not worry about where our kids were roaming the streets. Not having to take our kids to shopping malls because shopping malls provided armed security at Halloween. Things are upside down, and I think we can all agree this is not the country that we want to live in anymore. But none of us want to give up and leave because this is our home. This is our country. We love our country as much as it infuriates us. And I believe that if we actually stop playing the game, stop playing the status quo, and just saying, hey, all the Dems on this side say there's nothing we can do. Hey, all the Republicans on this side say the Dems are at fault. Or vice versa, instead of actually governing and actually making things better for the people, instead of lining their own pockets with stock buys, with lobbyist donations and lavish vacations, with foreign-funded organization contributions. And I'm not just talking about things like AIPAC or stuff like that. NRA, prime example. Did you know that over 50% of NRA's funding comes from Russia? And I'm a 2A American. NRA should stand for not really American if they're taken in rubles. That has nothing to do with our Second Amendment rights. There's things we can do together, but we gotta get loud. We gotta stop just saying, if we just support one side of the aisle or the other, all the problems are gonna be fixed. Because we got a problem, especially with things like Citizens United, where corruption isn't even being hid and illegal anymore. It's legalized corruption.
Preach.
So we can't just not look at the candidates and just pick by a color, blue or red. We need to get back to the red, white, and blue. Period. I'm running against Virginia Foxx.
Yes.
And nothing against our elderly communities. And I mean that. The greatest generation and their kids and their kids. If you're old enough to collect Social Security, you shouldn't be allowed to vote to take it away from those that do.
That's right.
Okay? So I hope I can count on your support. Clayton, the number 4nc.com. It's going to be an uphill battle for my district. I know that. Because I'm running as an independent. Because of gerrymandering, a Dem ticket has no path to victory. And if the DNC and Democrat Party were really serious on the federal level of firing MAGA representatives, they're only allegiant to one man over the Constitution, instead of actually representing their constituents, they would invest more in candidates that have a better chance of firing MAGA representatives than just putting another D on the board.
Right.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate all of you.
open it up to questions at this point. He's got the microphone, and then I'm going to be watching on Zoom. If anybody has any questions there, we'll kind of try to alternate. But yeah, please ask us anything.
Anyone?
Yeah.
Hi, Ashley. If you get elected, you win the primary and get elected, will you seriously think about impeaching Trump?
Yes. Did you see that thing on my Facebook today? Whatever group it is that's doing the citizens impeachment sent out an email and said, hey, this person's holding a town hall on this date. It happened to be me. They had gotten it, I guess, off of Mobilize. And they said, go to the town hall and ask the person if they are willing to support impeachment.
I swear I didn't, but.
But answer's still the same.
It doesn't matter, it's all, I'm in agreement.
It's good. Anybody else?
Hi, David. I want to thank you for what you're doing. I've been following you on social media for quite a while now and really appreciate everything.
Thank you. What's your name?
Rich Waxman.
Pleasure to meet you, Rich.
You've seen me comment quite a bit on your stuff, probably. Anyways, my question is this: how do we get the message out there? I've been working with the ever since Clayton and Milton hit. I've been up in Western North Carolina volunteering with the search and rescue, first responders, and we've been up there feeding people and doing all sorts of stuff for 8-9 months now. So the question is, how do we get the message out of what you're doing and what you're bringing to the table?
Well, we're just starting on my campaign, and I know I've got catching up to do, matter of fact, but I was actually helping fundraise to get generators donated to West North Carolina, because it's still an ongoing problem, and unfortunately, a lot of the ecosphere of the MAGA movement is that MAGA people themselves don't even realize that live in that area that Donald Trump recently denied the ongoing FEMA extension request to help rebuild and clean up all of Western North Carolina. Secondly, Rep. Virginia Foxx, she was directly involved with Hurricane Helene by locking a frontage road gate on her own constituents, trying to flee for their very lives down the mountainside from Hurricane Helene. And then she came out and lied about it. I don't know if any of you saw this story. I believe it was Raleigh Times or something like that, or Chronicle. She lied about it and said she didn't own the frontage road, which is true. She doesn't own it, and said that she needed permission from the frontage road owner, of which he came out and said, we've always granted the Fox family permission to grant permission, especially in case of emergency, for people to get to safety. But the fact of the matter is that frontage road came within eyesight of the Fox family estate property, highlighting once again that these people don't care about their own voter base, their own constituents, because to them, the common man, y'all are not worthy to them. And that's not just an isolated incident with Virginia Foxx. That's 95% of Congress put together. And I'm sorry to say this, I'm not trying to pick on Dems, but there's a lot of Democrats that have that same kind of celebrity, put me on a pedestal mindset too. And there was just a short little story. I was with my campaign manager at our hotel in Winston-Salem there, and we were ordering a small bit of lunch before we came here. And we told the lady, the clerk, who we were, and she just kind of had this attitude of, oh wow, I'm in the presence of someone famous, something like that. And I immediately stopped her and I said, no, the people got to change that mindset. You are the famous person. Anybody that's in a position of elected office or anything needs to be thanking and bowing down to you, the people, because remember who these elected officials work for. And somehow they flipped it on its head to where they're demanding praise and loyalty from all of you, taking away accountability from them. So, Virginia Foxx, Western North Carolina, we're going to get boots on the ground. We're going to get more volunteers going around, and not just door knocking and letting them know about the fight that we want everyone to participate in, but getting our hands dirty. You know, Virginia Foxx had that photo where she was in the cleanest dungarees I've ever seen in my life, holding a Home Depot bucket, posing like she was actually helping clean up.
I was actually there that day.
You saw that photo of her walking up that path?
I was there when she was being photographed.
Yeah. And as somebody that volunteered for Hurricane Irma with the Red Cross in Florida, when you're actually cleaning up, there isn't a speck of clean material on your clothes.
No, and I can tell you from being up in Swannanoa, in Burnsville, in Bernardsville, in Black Mountain, in Bat Cave, and I can go on, all the different towns we've been in up there. And I will tell you, probably 75–80% of these people who lost everything are huge supporters, MAGA supporters, and I don't understand it. And the education needs to be done. I just can't understand it.
You know, I think the big thing, and especially with this, I have to say alleged, it was the reason I got banned on TikTok for not using the word alleged, but the alleged association between Epstein and Trump. I think we're seeing a lot of MAGA people finally, that's their line in the sand, and they're turning away, and this is going to be the really tough part. The really tough part is for all of us to show a little bit of grace and have a little bit of forgiveness. I've been saying for 6 years online, we need to get back to the red, white, and blue. I can welcome someone I disagree with in policy that is a ardent conservative at my same table and still have mutual respect for you as an American. But where we're at today, you put a MAGA person and somebody on the left, a progressive, a centrist, whatever, what have you, it feels like, you know, someone's got a loaded weapon under the table, getting ready for self-defense, and that's not how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be able to sit down at the same table and agree to disagree about things, and then talk to resolve how to fix those issues. Because it's not enough just to call out the problems that we face in our society. Identifying the problem is the first part. Posing a solution is the next part.
I want to add that I am allegedly wearing a red shirt.
Hi, Ashley. She knows I can't be quiet about this. So, guys, I want to talk about Medicaid. As a parent of a child with developmental disabilities, 29 years old, I am scared to death. And I'll tell you why. Everybody says you're safe, you're disabled, you're safe. There is nothing safe, guys. There is nothing safe at this point that the Trump administration won't cut. In North Carolina, we have worked diligently for many, many years to bring people out of institutions, close those institutions, and bring them back into our community. And in order to have them in our community, we have to have home and community-based waivers. Those waivers are funded in North Carolina by the federal government, about 67% federal government funding, and then we do a match for the remainder. The match comes from the provider tax, which they just cut. That's what North Carolina uses to fund their other half of the waivers. Those waivers are optional. They are not a mandate. They can go away. And I'm worried. We're worried as aging parents for our child. What are you guys going to do to help fight for our children?
Question. Yeah, that's a very good question.
So I think that first of all, we have to flip Congress. And if we don't flip Congress, then we can't get much done, unfortunately. We have to flip Congress back to blue. Even if it's not me or David that gets in there, it has to be blue one way or another. And we've got to get this big bullshit bill repealed and overturned. I know that the state is doing what they can to supplement Medicaid with the Medicaid expansion, but that money's going to run out. And unfortunately, the Republicans just don't care because they think that everybody should have to work, even when they're unable. I was talking to somebody at an event yesterday who runs a dialysis center. If you don't know what dialysis is basically for people who have kidney failure. They usually have to go 3 times a week for 3 or 4 hours at a time and just sit there and basically let their entire blood supply be cleaned. And a lot of those people are on Medicaid for the reason that they have to be in a dialysis clinic in person 3 times a week for 4 hours a day. And it's really hard to hold a job when you're in that situation. But the criteria that they are going to use to try to say if people do or don't have to work are going to be criteria that I am sure will be near impossible to meet. That's my answer. We have to flip Congress blue. That's pretty much the only way that we turn this around and fix it. And once we do that, we have to think about better ways for healthcare to be administered in this country. Obviously, universal healthcare would be the best thing. But we all know that the Republicans and the insurance companies are not going to allow us to do that easily. So we have to probably figure out little pieces that we can do to get to that point, and we have to continue to hold Congress, because if we just hold Congress for 2 years and then it gets flipped back, then that's all of our work down the drain. I mean, we've already seen how the Republicans have pretty much decimated like 30 years of progress just in 6 months. So, universal health care, new way of thinking about health care that has not been thought about before, because what we're doing isn't working, and flip Congress.
Do you mind if I add to that? Thank you. That was great. I can see on your face that you need a solution yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Because this is going to affect you literally right now. And we've got too many politicians that will tell you today, you know, just wait for the next election, just wait for the next election. And it's your face right now is breaking my heart. Because I know, I can feel your fear. None of this ever should have happened. So Ashley, I agree, is 100% right that you know, I'm running as an independent. We need more progressive, you know, party values across the board in Congress. But we also need stopgaps that prevent any of this from happening again. Because if the cycle proves anything historically, it goes back and forth. A horrible pass of the bill by Republicans that only care about the rich and hurt the everyday American, or a repeal, and then back and forth and back and forth. So what I propose, we desperately need a budget accountability act, wherein going forward, any kind of budget passed, like they just did, where they're taking away from your kids, from your parents' health care, from underprivileged health care, more than the entirety of our DOD annual budget. Cut. And the real kick in the backside is the American public isn't going to feel the most severity of that until
After 2026.
after 2026, so that the Republicans, so that Trump can then say, well, hey, look who's in control now, look who has the majority now, it's their fault, which Trump did in his first term. That's their playbook.
By design.
So how do we stop things like this in this back and forth cycle? A Budget Accountability Act, wherein if there are sectors of our government that are included within the budget reconciliation, if they can't pass an audit, like our DOD, who has never passed an audit, the Pentagon has never passed an audit, then you can't cut from programs that do. Plain and simple. If we're cutting nearly $1 trillion in Medicaid and Medicare from the American public in a program that they lie and say it's because of waste, fraud, and abuse, just to give that $1 trillion tax cut to the rich, meanwhile, just under $1 trillion is being spent at the Pentagon, and they can't pass an audit and account for where that money's going, they should not be able, legally, to cut from programs that can pass an audit.
I have a question for Mike. Mike, you are a former police officer, and I know that you know about all the stuff that's taking place on the streets with immigrants being kidnapped. and people masquerading as ICE agents in masks, literally. Could you tell us what you think about that?
I think it's outrageous. I think it's disgraceful. It makes me embarrassed to have ever worn a badge, to be completely honest with you. I remember I spent 2 decades as a DC police officer. Most of my career I worked in narcotics as an undercover officer and a case agent. I worked with multiple federal agencies as a task force officer, the FBI, the ATF, DEA. And from time to time, we would come across ICE guys. We would call them like the khaki pants squad because most of what they did was if somebody came into law enforcement's custody and they just so happened to be undocumented, then once they were done with our system, whether they were prosecuted, found guilty, served time, then they would go and apply for a warrant, a retainer, to essentially have them deported from the country. And there was none of this, armored vehicles showing up to people's houses and blowing up doors in explosive breaching, which is actually something I've never even seen in my entire career as a police officer. I thought that was insane. It goes against pretty much every principle that I believed in as an American law enforcement officer. The idea of wearing a mask while you're conducting enforcement operations, the idea of using an overwhelming show of force on American soil for no other reason than to give the optics of being a occupying force.
Terror.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me sick. And I, to be honest with you, I don't understand how those guys can go out and do that job day in and day out. I would have quit long before now. I quit the Metropolitan Police Department in the aftermath of my congressional testimony for the simple fact that I believe that I could no longer be a police officer with that agency and continue to tell the truth. That those two things were not, the department was trying to keep me quiet, and I was having none of that. And so, yeah, I would just, my advice to those guys is quit your job, go find something else to do. You're dishonoring yourselves, and unfortunately, you're dishonoring this profession in a way that I think is, will take, you think some of these more polarizing incidents involving people of color in like the 2000s were, destructive to law enforcement's credibility. I think this has decimated law enforcement's credibility with the American people and the average American's ability to trust in the process, trust in people wearing a badge.
Yeah, that sucks.
I agree.
I support good cops. You, sir, are a good cop.
Yeah.
Even if you and I might disagree on some things politically, you are a good cop. And I know you yourself, we were at the Unite for Vets rally in DC with Dropkick Murphys, and you said something that stuck out to me. You said, I hate it when people call me a hero. Because you felt you were just doing your job as a patriotic American. So I just want to say thank you for that.
My name is Dan. I'm from Winston-Salem. I'm almost 63. I've never been involved in politics until now. We're in desperate times, and so I'm all in. I'm retired. I'm all in. So Richard Murdoch, okay, the owner of Wall Street Journal, and Fox Entertainment.
Rupert.
Rupert Murdoch, I am so sorry.
Yeah, we all knew who you were talking about.
Yeah. That poor guy, I bastardized his name anyway.
That's all right.
So Fox News and Wall Street Journal, you know, they have over the period of 40 years bamboozled an entire group of people that's all they watch.
Yep.
And this regime has been successful in intimidating and strong-arming the executives of the mainstream media, and they're folding like a deck of cards. It's absolutely embarrassing to watch. I mean, I rely on independent news folks like Aaron Parnas and Midas Touch and Lincoln Project and the brilliant college professor, and I can't think of her name right now. Heather Cox Richardson, okay, senior moment. But, you know, so you guys have an incredibly challenging job to get your message out there when you are surrounded by media that has been lapped up and is owned by this regime. So there's got to be a strategy of, if you can't beat them, dive in there like Pete Buttigieg and get on their networks and tell them the truth. People have not heard the truth for 40 years.
Right.
And I'm tired of being gaslit. You know, people that I respect and love say that Biden doesn't even exist. So my question is what are you going to do to get yourself out there, to get the message out, to talk to these fooled people, a large percentage of population?
We do need to get back out there. We do need to do things like Buttigieg did and does masterfully. But we can't be pushovers about it and placate and become friendly chums sharing a pint like Gavin Newsom is doing with, you know, these other right-wing podcasts and programs. We don't need to be coddling these people. Buttigieg, I don't know how he manages, I think I've heard him swear one word ever in his entire existence. I don't know how he does it, but he does it masterfully. I would not have that same kind of reserve. I will happily be on those programs, but I'm going to call their bold-faced lies out to their face, and they can cut the mic and cut the segment. Because
I mean, kind of have nothing to lose. We can kind of say whatever we want and do whatever we want, and we don't have to worry about it, you know, backfiring on us. And I think that's what we have to do. We just have to be bold and use whatever language is necessary to get the point across. I've had many people over the course of my campaign thus far tell me not to say certain things, and to that I say, fuck that.
And I hope once you get elected,
that won't be a problem.
then you and I can co-sponsor bringing back the fairness doctrine to cut out this partisan bullshit and these lying echo chambers.
Yeah.
Love it. Bring it to the people.
Because the fairness doctrine used to give equal times to both sides of the story, but now you don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
Fairness.
Yeah, Mike, you know, I know you want to say something, but also you worked at CNN for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't know if you have anything to add on, because that is a mainstream media thing. But Mike is also, I mean, he's been on with Don Lemon and Jim Acosta, and those are really great guys who used to be mainstream media, who are now independent. So we need to be, you know, boosting those people up as well. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, so I'm gonna dive into both questions all at once. First, what I want to say is, since I'm not running for office and I'm not a politician, I think that it's very difficult running for Congress. It's very difficult really running for any office. It's expensive. You know, the type of candidates that we all want, people like David, people like Ashley, you know, they're not billionaires, who can finance their own campaigns. They rely on, campaign donations. But then it's like, do you want to open yourself up to taking donations from entities that are going to want something in return? Or do you just want to make it a grassroots effort? Well, then that's even more difficult. So my thing is, while it's incumbent on them to get their message out there, what is everybody in this room going to do to get their message out there on their behalf? Because ultimately, I think it's time that, we the people, we the voters, take an onus for the type of people that we're sending to Congress, and not just sit back and say, well, you didn't run a good enough campaign, or you didn't raise enough money, and oh well, I guess we're just going to go with the same old, same old. And then segueing into independent media, which you already seem to be on the right track when it comes to some trusted news sources like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, which we all know is pretty much worthless when it comes to telling the truth. I mean, it can be entertaining from time to time, but other than that, it's kind of like watching wrestling. I worked for CNN as a contributor for 2 years, and I can tell you my experience. While I was never told what to say, it got to a point where they were no longer interested in hearing what I had to say, and so I just was not used. And then my contract wasn't renewed, and so my experience is that what we refer to as legacy media, all of it, whether it's right, left, center, or the boring shit on NBC, CBS, and those entities now it's all corporate. And so, when you are a news organization that may be owned by some conglomerate that owns like 500 different companies, and you're applying for a merger like we saw with Sky, whatever, and Paramount recently, and you're looking for approval of the White House to go forward with your, bazillion-dollar merger, and then you're willing to cut, make the news fit what you think that is going to be okay for this administration, because this administration is openly attacking journalism, and then they do it, and they do it for money. And so for me, I can't trust an organization that does that. What I'm looking for, and have been now for a while, is these independent news operators, some of them who came from legacy media, guys like Jim Acosta, Don Lemon, and who understand that they only make money if people listen to them, and people are only going to listen to them if they trust them. And so they are much more careful with, the way that they, the type of news that they're delivering, exactly, the content and the quality of the content. But I also think that, and I constantly remind them, like, you guys can't just go from legacy media to independent media and then recreate legacy media in your independent, and they need to be platforming people like Ashley and Dave, because the American people need an opportunity to hear from them, just like that aren't able to show up to meetings like this because they're working, because they don't live nearby, they can't get health or child care, and whatever the case may be. And so I think that, my message here is, this has got to be a collective effort. It can't just be on the candidates themselves. It's got to be all of us stepping up and delivering for the candidate that we want.
Yeah. Right.
No,
That's
right.
Hi, I'm Lucinda. My question was for David. Ashley's in a district running against Pat Harrigan, who came here, claims he's from North Carolina, but he has a house in Wyoming, and he's actually from California, and his parents supposedly live in Hickory, but they still have their 5,000 square foot house in San Diego. So, and he was brought here, and the GOP in North Carolina built this district for him so he would win it and took it away from Jeff Jackson. Okay? So my question to you, David, is you're not from here.
No, I'm not.
What brings you to North Carolina?
When I was driving the country helping homeless vets, this was one of my stops because there are quite a few population of homeless vets throughout North Carolina, especially the Raleigh area. I always had a feeling I wanted to run for office, but I knew because the establishment in Southern California is so entrenched in, it's nearly impossible to challenge any seat. Julia Brownlee was my representative from Thousand Oaks, California. The people, the countryside, I've always been a bit of an outdoorsman, a fly fisherman. If any of you are familiar with the movie A River Runs Through It, I was there for the filming of it when I was a little kid with my half-brother's father, Ray Clayton Sr., fly fishing on the Beaverhead. And Robert Redford came over and said, hey, you guys mind if we film here? And I vividly remember my district attorney, half-brother's father, Ray Clayton Sr., yelling back, you're scaring away all the damn fish, go film somewhere else. So that was kind of funny. That was right up his alley. But to your point, I'm not from here. I do live in my district. I purposely moved to Lenore, which is underserved, underprivileged, has a really bad drug problem. Specifically because Hickory's beautiful. The previous, and hopefully returning soon, furniture capital of the world. But we gotta start rebuilding back from the bottom up. Places that are affected the most first. Because the places in North Carolina that are doing okay, but everyone still needs help, they're only gonna be stagnant and not being able to be any better if we don't help our surrounding neighbors. The least of us. I am a Christian. I believe that my faith, or at least the institutionalized version of my faith, has been quite bastardized and perverted by a lot of the Trump base, especially with excusing things like child trafficking and just the worst of humanity has to offer. But I am a Christian. I don't impose my faith upon anyone, and I understand I'm only human, and I will make mistakes, but I try every single day to ask myself, what would Jesus do? How would Jesus behave? How would Jesus? To try to truly live a inline Christ-like life, knowing that I'm going to fail. I think too many have repeated, not to get too preaching from the pulpit here, but too many in today's society have said, he's forgiven me for my sins, so I've got a golden ticket to go out and living my worst existence possible just because I got a free pass. And I don't believe that's in his teachings. North Carolina is one of the most beautiful countrysides I've visited, and I've seen in our country, coast to coast, sunset to sunset. And this is the last state I ever want to see turned into a rushing pit to nowhere because Donald Trump wants to chew it up and spit it out just for an extra buck of coal or natural gas. Our country has plenty of that stuff all around the country. Leave the land alone. Leave the public lands alone. Don't sell off the public lands. So though I do understand your direct concern, I'm not a native North Carolinian, but I will try to earn that adoption till my last breath.
For the record, neither am I. I'm from Texas. I'm from Ruby Road, rural East Texas. And I moved here to go to PA school in 2009. So I have been here for a while. But on this, you kind of alluded to a little bit of corruption with, them building the district for Pat Harrigan and the gerrymandering and all of that. And one of the reasons that I'm still running as a Democrat, even though I have second thoughts about that on a regular basis, given everything that is going on or not going on, is because I love calling out corruption. I think I do a pretty good job at it. And there are people, just as many people in leadership of the Democratic Party who are corrupt as there are in the Republican Party. I've seen it with my own eyes, some in this district. And that's gonna stop. We have to have people who are outspoken enough and aggressive enough to call out people on their own side. And, you know, that's the only way we're gonna fix the Democratic Party. So that is one of the reasons why I'm still running as a Democrat, and I do believe in democratic ideals.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that because I couldn't agree more. And that for a lot of Democrats, especially older generation Democrats, that's hard to hear because it feels like your party's under attack. We got to stop putting elected officials on pedestals, and especially those you support. You got to hold them accountable, especially because you're not MAGA. I'm sorry to anyone, if anyone is in this room that is MAGA. You're an American, and I still love you, even if we absolutely disagree. But we don't follow blindly. We don't pledge allegiance to one man. We never will. But we gotta hold those that we put in positions of power accountable. We can't just say, that's my guy or girl, and you know, wish them best of luck and forget about it. You gotta hold those you support accountable.
How do you get them to do a town hall?
According to my research, Virginia Foxx in 20 plus years has yet to do a single one.
She's never.
I
But I'll be reaching out to her.
And Pat Harrigan was invited to do one the 9th of August, and he flat out refused.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because the one that he kind of had,
That was
He-
an open house.
it turned into an open house at the last minute, and then he ran from everybody like the little pussy that he is.
Right.
Sorry, I woke up like on like the wrong side of the bed this morning, y'all. I just
And that was beside the wall.
filter's gone.
I would just like to say, it looks like you've got a question coming up here,
Yeah.
but if we could all just give a special thanks to Ashley because she organized all this and set us up. And thank you very much for including me in this, Ashley.
Of
I
course.
appreciate it.
Of course. And I like I said, I am running as a Democrat, but I support candidates depending on what they stand for and who they are. And I believe that David is the best candidate for District 5. And I also believe that he is the only one that has a snowball's chance in hell at beating Virginia Foxx. I kind of, you know, I mean, he is running as an independent, so we need to make sure that we get everybody out that we can to support him. So.
That is so key. Oh, good.
Hey, my name is Josh. I'm 31 years old and I'm a little bit younger. I was very disappointed in the outcome of the 2024 election. I watched that closely. I was actually canvassing for a company called Carolina Federation, knocking on doors, trying to get Kamala Harris elected. And I noticed that when she first came out and when she first took over for Joe Biden and she announced 10 walls, they came out swinging. They were like 12, 15 points up in most polls. It really seemed after they got the more establishment Democratic aides and advisors in on that campaign, that's when they really started to struggle. They seemed to put a muzzle on Tim Walz. He wasn't out there calling the MAGA folks weird and like mocking J.D. Vance for screwing his couch. Like those were effective things that were shaming the MAGA movement. They were driving them into a frenzy, and it pushed them into a corner where they have to create wild names like Tampon Tim because he provided free hygiene products for women or for young girls and women in public bathrooms, which then leads everybody to, it just feeds around in a cycle. It's like, well, yeah, why would you not want to do that? So it just pushes them into a corner, and it just feels like the establishment kind of muzzled that campaign. I think that you guys already kind of assuaged my fears about.
Are we going to give them hell? Is that your question?
Because I think you guys have already assuaged my fears on that. You guys definitely feel like the kind of fighters that are going to go in there and not let the establishment push you guys around and say, actually, you can't say that thing. Why not?
That's what young people
That's what the majority of that's what the majority of the country wants.
Yes.
Zoran Mamdani and I can't remember Omar Fatah in Minneapolis. They both have just toppled two massive establishment Democratic figures. The mayor of Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, just went down to an outsider, and Andrew Cuomo just went down to an outsider. Those kinds of policies are what has been pulled across the country that voters want, and I just want to know that you guys are going to focus on the polling from the voters and not on what the establishment wants.
So I'll tell you what, Nathan, right? Josh. Nathan. Who's Nathan? Nathan's right there. Sorry, Josh. Josh Stein? Josh Stein just endorsed me. I want that on the record. I'm kidding. Instagram Live, don't ban me. Too much of that going on. I'll tell you what, I had the pleasure of being flown out by the HFP, the Harris for President campaign, to go pheasant hunting with Governor Walz in Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. And he was being held back. He had a lot more to say privately. And he's a great guy. He's one of the best of us. One of our best elected leaders across the country. Just an educator, a compassionate guy, a smart guy, and he doesn't take any shit. I'm a better shot than him, but when the Secret Service let me around the shotguns, that is. But anyway, we do need to give them hell and not coddle them and fight fire with fire. But we also have to remember, and I've told my viewers this many, many times, we have to be careful not to become what we fight against. Okay? You can, believe me, I could rattle off 50 words and every single one of them would be a cuss word, but I don't think every single person in this room wants to hear that. There are ways to communicate. Pete Buttigieg, perfect example. Like I said before, I've only heard him use one swear word ever in his life, and he was pissed. But there are ways to communicate. There are ways to end a debate by stopping someone in their tracks with facts. And you can drag them a little bit in the mud too at the same time. But it is really important for the soul of our nation not to become what we fight against. So there's a fine line there.
And one final thing, I think, like you said, people want aggressive candidates. And I think we've pretty much proven that we're pretty aggressive. And I also want you all to remember that in the primaries, okay? If somebody, you wouldn't have a primary, but I would have a primary, maybe. I am currently the only officially filed candidate in the 10th district. There is somebody else campaigning, but if you check FEC, which I do every day, I am the only one who has filed a statement of candidacy, and I filed it in April. And so I've been running now for over 3 months. I think that shows I'm serious. And I also think that you see just from tonight that I'm aggressive. And so I want you to think about that when you're thinking about who to support. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Pam Kirby. Ashley, I'm attracted to because I have a nursing background, and I believe that healthcare is one of our worst issues. But the thing that you said, David, that attracted me to your campaign too, is you explained your position like on the stopgap. And I think, what you said about don't become what you hate is so easy for us to do that. But, people, we need guts and integrity. And we also need some real answers. I don't want to hear, I'm going to lower your grocery bill. Right. I want to hear, we need to do this step, and this step, and this step. And I think the electorate needs to be spoken to like we're not idiots. And
what is your number one issue? Women's rights?
That's right up there, healthcare, women's, issue, social security,
So all across the nation, women's rights is a big one.
Right.
It's a very controversial subject. All across this nation, there have been states imposing oppressive laws against women and their bodily autonomy. I am proudly my mother's son, and I will never betray her memory by ever selling out or going against how she raised me. She would haunt me and kick my ass if I ever did. She was a tough one. There isn't a whole heck of a lot you can do in Republican majorities that are putting together these oppressive laws. So, along your line of coming up with solutions, stopgaps, I have a healthcare provider along Ashley Bell's line of profession, Protections Act, that ensures a legal amnesty for healthcare providers to be able to carry out their practice for their patients. So regardless of any oppressive state or federal law that's out there, the healthcare provider, what they do between them and their patient is their own business, and they are free and legally protected to perform those life-saving procedures.
That's great.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
So I know I'm running for national office, but I'm sure all of you are aware that today in the North Carolina legislature, there were several bills that had been vetoed by our governor that then got voted, I guess, back into effect by all of the Republicans and a few Democrats. And I just want to call those Democrats out by name. Specifically Nassif Mahid from Mecklenburg. Thanks for voting back into effect the fact that healthcare providers can be sued for providing gender-affirming therapy. You have just alienated pretty much every healthcare provider in the state, and we will not forget it. I hope you enjoy this because it's your last term. Also, Shelley Willingham, you too. You voted to put back into effect dangerous weapons that might be carried on campus during school hours, whether they're trained or not. I think that's probably a pretty bad idea. So get ready, because we're coming to primary you. And Carly Cunningham, same for you. I hope that you enjoy the backlash that you're going to get from your constituents when they see their Duke Energy electric bills. Because since Duke Energy is now going, I think it's a nuclear power plant they're trying to get money for or something like that, all of our bills are going to go up. So I hope that you have a career to go back to, because your time in Congress in this state is over.
Good.
Hi, I'm Patty, and I made the first comment. This might be the last, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. It's very timely because I was just about ready to praise Democrats. I believe we need new leadership. I'm a huge fan of AOC, and I do believe there's bad seeds everywhere you go. But I think at this time, my priority is saving democracy. And the Dems, the majority of the Dems, that's what we're trying to do. Well, we've got the Republicans pushing Christian nationalism, funny Christians, not like you, Dave, but pushing this stuff down our throat, and acting Project 2025 at just a light speed. So I wanted to say, when we're talking about partisanship and so on, back and forth, I still have to praise Democrats because the majority of them, I like to think, are trying to save democracy.
And Patty, I agree, and I really try to push this because if I say anything about Gavin Newsom and his handling of ICE agents, ooh, people come for me online. If I say anything about Democrats, and I am a lifelong Democrat, and I'm unabashedly proud of that, because I support a lot of Democrat progressive principles and policies. I'm running as an independent because a Dem ticket has no path to victory in my district. But progressive policies are also fiscally conservative because they're good for the long run. On your line about thanking Democrats that do good, yeah, absolutely. That doesn't mean that all of them do, and like Ashley was saying, the ones that don't need to be primaried by Democrats that will.
Oh, and I will contact those.
Yeah.
If you can put those on your Facebook page or whatever, I'll look it up.
Please do
You know,
that.
I give them hell just as much. And I have to say, it is nice to actually meet an independent who's not a Republican.
Yeah, I know.
Because
I know
unfortunately,
they run
most of
that
the
way.
independents I know are truly Republican.
Even though the world's most famous independent is, the older gentleman with the mittens, Bernie Sanders.
But I haven't officially met him.
I haven't either, and I fully share your enthusiasm for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's amazing.
She is amazing.
And along with Jasmine Crockett, there's a lot of great up and comers that are sadly being held back by a lot of establishment Democrats like Pelosi, like Hakeem Jeffries, like a lot of Democrats that are connected to a lot of the same corporate PACs that a lot of the Republicans are. And we have a real problem, like I said before, with legalized corruption in our governing body, and it affects both sides of the aisle. It's not partisan.
Does anybody have another question for Mike?
I do.
Yeah.
So I know that you took an oath to defend the Constitution, and if you guys both win, then you will have done so as well. Do you guys? We need to make sure that this kind of thing never happens again, and like we truly mean it this time. Or would you guys be in support of a Nuremberg-style trials for this time around?
Oh, wow.
They defiled the Constitution.
That's
They
a tough
ripped it to
question.
shreds.
That's a really tough question. I think the best way to answer that, believe me, I've seen that comment a million times online. And they're I don't know if they're militia members being hired by ICE or Homeland Security, J6ers perhaps, I don't know. I know a lot of my friends that are veterans, that are Green Berets and things like that, that I've become friends with on a personal level because of my advocacy, are saying outright that these people aren't moving with any kind of tactical purpose or training. They're just picking up brown people off the streets. No judicial warrants, no named judicial warrants. Nuremberg trials, how do you answer that, Mike? That's probably one of the hardest questions I think I'll ever get. Is direct crimes against humanity of Americans? Why not?
Hell yeah.
Why not? Who carries that out though? Because right now, we don't have any structure of legal authority to actually hold those accountable that would be found guilty of those crimes. You got Pam Bondi covering up for Donald Trump and Epstein. So who is the legal authority in our country right now?
Well, the reason why we ended up with the second Trump turn is because Merrick Garland dragged his damn feet.
I agree.
Prosecuting Donald Trump the first time around during Joe Biden's
I agree.
And if that had happened, he would never be in his second term.
I do agree.
I'd like to ask a question. How do you feel about that it was stolen from her? I believe that I believe it was stolen from
The election is what
Yes,
you're talking
absolutely.
about? When Donald Trump is calling to delegitimize the certification of every state currently because of his ongoing thing with 2020, why should we just willy-nilly accept that 24 was legitimate? I know Hakeem Jeffries and a lot of corporate Democrats were braggadocious and saying, we're not election deniers up here. You don't have to be an election denier just to challenge the legitimacy and challenge to see, I mean, how many lawsuits did Donald Trump file saying that 2020 was stolen?
There's one in New York now.
How many, we've got one civil suit, not even filed by the Democrats. We have one civil suit on the legitimacy of the 2024 election. Why? Why is there not a single Democrat that says every single swing state? Prove it.
Why not?
With that,
Right?
Why didn't it happen?
David, with that.
Why didn't it?
John Roberts has been an absolute failure
Yes.
as a Supreme Court Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. We have Supreme Court members who are not qualified and lied to get during their confirmation hearings. Why have they not been impeached? Why is John Roberts still sitting there, and why is Merrick Garland and the Democrats in their 4 years, like he just said, drag their feet, drop the ball? I mean, what is the reason that you can guess that they did nothing to straighten any of this out?
What, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, sworn oath testimony for congressional approval, Senate approval. If you're lying under that sworn oath testimony, isn't that the same thing as perjury that any of us would be found guilty for?
Exactly. Especially for the Supreme
So why are there two sets of laws today?
Right. That's right.
So I don't have an answer to that. I agree with you. Whether it be Clarence Thomas or it's Roberts or Alito with his Christian nationalism flag. Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
What happened to Kavanaugh's death? There's a lot of unanswered questions, and Garland's, I don't know why. I'm sure a lot of people can come up with a lot of conspiracy theories asking why. But Garland did the very least he possibly could have. And, you know, Biden did a lot of good things for our country, especially coming out of the Trump first term, where we were in a downward spiral. He really, and his whole administration really had to hustle. They really had to move to save us from an economic collapse. But man, that's going to go down in history, in my personal opinion, as a huge failure, paramount to pardoning Confederates.
Yeah.
Right.
Mike, I would like for you to tell us, because obviously a lot of the J6 idiots were pardoned, including all of them, including the ones that attacked you. So I would like you to just tell us kind of briefly how that affected you and how you're still dealing with that and why that kind of has pushed you to continue doing what you're doing.
Yeah, so there were 5 individuals that were criminally charged with assaulting me on January 6th. All of them pled guilty. There were no criminal trials. They pled before trial. The first of those was an individual. His name was Cosper Head, Albuquerque Cosper Head. He was from Tennessee. He was the one, if any of you have seen my body-worn camera footage from that day, he grabbed me around the neck, pulled me off the police line, out into the crowd, and he was the one that was screaming, "I've got one, I've got one." He pled guilty, expressed no remorse, and was sentenced to time in prison, then later pardoned by Donald Trump on January 20th. Another one of those individuals was an individual named Kyle Young. Kyle Young is the one that you can see lunging at me. He grabbed my firearm and was trying to remove it from my holster, all while screaming, "I'm going to kill you with your gun." He was apprehended, pled guilty, and then later pardoned by Donald Trump. Daniel Rodriguez, he's the one from California who drove a stun gun that he obtained from another rioter into my neck numerous times while I was being restrained and assaulted. Sentenced to over 12 years in prison, pardoned by Donald Trump. Thomas Siddick from Buffalo, New York. He's the one that stripped my badge from my chest and stole my police radio. He later buried my badge in his backyard as a keepsake from the day. And then after numerous interviews with the FBI and lying time and time again, he finally turned it over and then pled guilty and was sentenced to, I think, 5.5 years in prison, pardoned by Donald Trump. He's the one who infamously, he was incarcerated while pending trial and was released by the judge because he pled for mercy because he said he was getting relentlessly beaten up while in prison, and then while he was on house release, applied to use dating apps so that he could maintain his social life while at home. And then Wayne Snoots from Virginia, he was one of the ones who was restraining my arms, holding them while I was being punched, kicked, tased, and beaten with objects. And for any disbelievers, all of this is well documented in my body-worn camera footage from that day, which has been publicly available pretty much since I released it about a month after January 6th. And I did it for that exact reason, for transparency. And so, I took the last election incredibly personally. I saw it as really as a referendum on me. I had been out there advocating for, first advocating for honoring the officers that did their jobs that day. Then found myself combating conspiracy theories and lies about January 6th and what that day was really like. And then later, doing everything I could to make sure that Donald Trump didn't assume office again, having experienced what I had at his hands, and having the American people elect him to be president once again. I saw it as like the biggest fuck you to Michael Fanone and his family. And again, and there's a lot of America too that experienced this, anyone who's been outspoken against the administration. My family has suffered doxing, harassing phone calls, physical assaults. Many of you may have seen the interview that my mother and I gave to Joy Reid shortly after an individual pulled up while she was in her front yard in suburban Virginia raking leaves and screamed at her that her son was a traitor and threw a bag of shit on her.
Oh,
And my mother's 76 years old. She lives alone. She wouldn't come out of her house for like a week after that. And so, while I agree with David that this country needs its kumbaya moment, I ain't gonna be the one leading that fucking campaign. And I tell you, we can't do anything. We can't move forward without accountability. And I'm not talking about the 1,500 morons that stormed the Capitol and assaulted police officers. They got theirs, and then they were pardoned by the President of the United States, which unfortunately is well within his right, and that's over with. But you still have 147 members of Congress that voted against certifying the 2020 election. Right. We now know, without a shred of evidence, nothing. The say-so of one man, Donald Trump, and maintaining their own political careers and keeping their party in power. If we can't find a way to hold those individuals accountable, then I don't know how we progress as a country. Because without doing that, listen, I was a cop for 20 years. I know firsthand that the threat of punishment keeps a lot of people from doing things that they may otherwise do. I know the threat of going to jail keeps me from doing things that I will. Right. But that being said, for me, that the number one issue in this upcoming election, I'm looking for candidates that are going to adhere to the Constitution, respect their oath, that care about democracy, and I care about candidates that are going to seek out accountability for those who have disgraced their oath and our Constitution, and in turn thumb their nose at we the people, because they place themselves. David talked about putting politicians on a pedestal. Well, a lot of these politicians put them damn selves on a pedestal, and they look down at the rest of us.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
I want to add that there's not many times that you have the opportunity in this nation's history to hear in their own voice and their own words such a salient moment, much like Paul Revere writing The Red Coats Are Coming. This man, his book, Hold the Line, is written. It will enrage you, it will lift you up, and I encourage you to give it a listen or a read.
Yeah.
Plus,
Yeah.
the social media, this man sacrificed so much simply by going to work that day. Thank you.
And he wasn't even supposed to be at the Capitol that day. He self-deployed.
Yeah, I was supposed to be buying drugs for the government. And, I mean, if you indulge me, because I do like telling this story. I think it's important for people to hear it like right out of my mouth. I was working for we were, neck deep in a narcotics investigation at the time. I was going to be buying heroin that day, and I remember vividly listening.
This is for Donald Trump Jr., right? I'm just getting caught up on your investigation.
So I remember. So I lived at the time. I lived relatively close to D.C. I was in the Northern Virginia, and my partner Jimmy Albright, he lived like way the hell out in Beale, Maryland, and so he called me up and said, "Hey, listen, man, some of the guys that are at work right now are telling me that some crazy shit's happening over at the Ellipse, and which is where the actual Stop the Steal rally was being held. And so he's like, can you turn your radio on because I don't get reception out here." And our shift started that day at 3, but this was probably around like 11, 12 o'clock. And I started hearing, listening to guys I knew. So it's kind of surreal because you recognize their voices on the radio. And they were saying things like, there's a guy, this guy has a firearm, or like, these different, so-and-so just went to his car and he's got a baseball bat. And these are undercover officers that are observing these things that are taking place in the crowd. And then all of a sudden they're saying, there's a massive movement down Pennsylvania Avenue towards the Capitol. And I just kind of thought it was going to be like a walking protest. Like I still didn't really pay it much mind. But then 1 o'clock, I remember I was getting my shit ready to go in, and I hear on the radio that there's been a breach in the police line. And that's when the outermost barricade was toppled on the west front of the Capitol. And that was when I was like, okay, I called Jimmy back up and I said, we're gonna go into work. And I was driving into work and I'm listening to my radio, and then I was a task force officer, so I also had an FBI radio. I'm listening to both of them simultaneously and talking to Jimmy on the phone as I'm driving in. And I just remember hearing officers screaming. And our distress call in DC is a 1033. And so guys were using this 10 code, 1033, officer down, officer needs assistance. And then it just broke down into like help. And I worked in the inner city police department, or I worked in the inner city police department. That's not, you hear officers call for distress before. But I remember, and I will always remember this vividly, we had a commander, his name was Robert Glover, and he's kind of like a savant when it comes to, like he works for our special operations division, he handles mass protests, like that's his thing. And he's like Rain Man. He has no personality, but yeah, he knows how to deploy officers like nobody else. And he never, like, he has the most monotone, composed, conversation on the radio, and his voice was cracking. And he was calling for outside agencies, telling the dispatcher, like, contact the FBI, have them send a hostage rescue team from Quantico.
That's when you know it's real.
Which is something that, like, I had never heard in my entire career. Calling for, Prince George's County and all the surrounding agencies to send whoever they could, whenever they could, as fast as they could. We had a lieutenant who was in the 4th District, actually commandeer a Metro bus and load it full of officers and drive like a mad woman down to the Capitol because we just didn't have enough people. And I remember when I went into the Lower West Terrace Tunnel, and when I was pulled out of the tunnel, because at that point I had no idea what the West Terrace looked like, how many people were there. I entered from the south side of the Capitol. As far as I knew, there was maybe a few hundred people kind of like doing whatever. And then when I pulled out, and it was every bit of 15,000 people on the west front of the Capitol. It was horrifying. And, when they talk about all these arguments at the outset about were they armed, were they not armed? Well, listen, nobody fucking shot at us. Were they armed? I don't know. I was too busy fighting for my life to pat down all 15,000 of those guys. Were there weapons recovered? Hell yeah, there were, guns and all that. But I never had a situation where I remember being in the tunnel and having people throw mortars, like professional grade fireworks, into the tunnel. My ears were bleeding at the end of the day. A lot of officers, some of them lost their hearing permanently. The absolute sheer brutality of what so many guys experienced, and they've never been platformed like I have to talk about it. It's just, wherever you stand on your politics or your whatever, like, if you can't recognize that day as being a fucking disgrace, an absolute disgrace.
Can I just ask you one question? I understand that there's a fraternal order of police.
FOP.
Right.
Fraternal order of police.
Are you getting any support from them?
Never did. Never have.
Okay. I knew the answer to that. How do you?
Pat Yost, the president of the FOP, and the FOP has always been, ever since Trump, has always been a MAGA union.
It's the country's second largest union and first most corrupt.
Yeah.
Wow.
That FOP does not protect police officers. It does not help good police officers.
We never received any acknowledgement at the national level. And I'll tell you something else that I pointed out when I had a very energetic conversation with Pat Yost several years ago, in that any time in this country, since the advent of social media and the FOP got a social media website or page, anytime an officer was assaulted, the FOP, whether it was some podunk town that had one cop, if he was assaulted, they put up a national wanted poster for whoever was identified as having assaulted that person. Anytime a politician said anything negative about policing or police officers, which, of course at that time was all Democrats, they would post something publicly in opposition to that. In the aftermath of January 6th, when there were literally thousands of wanted posters floating around from the FBI and other agencies investigating that day, the FOP wouldn't post a single fucking solitary one.
That's just incredible.
Not one. I never heard from anyone at the national level. Hell, I never even heard anybody from my local. of which I was a paid dues-paying member for 20 years.
Question, really quick. Michael, do you still keep in touch with some of the officers that you were up against it with that day?
Oh yeah. No, I talked to quite a few guys that are still on the job, and then I've met literally thousands of cops over the past 4 years all across the country that that I keep in touch with. So yeah.
All right, y'all, we have to stop, sorry.
It's Ashley's fault, it's not mine.
So I do want to make one comment. Unfortunately, we do have to raise money to afford to be able to continue to run these congressional campaigns. So I did post our fundraising links in the Zoom, and then you can also go to our website. So mine is ab4nc.com, and his is clayton4nc.com. And there are donate links on the very top of both of ours up in the corner. So we would love any contributions you're able to give so that we can continue to try to take back our country.
Yeah. Also, is anybody willing to volunteer their time or effort into either one of these political candidates? We would absolutely love your help.
Yeah, I believe both of our websites have a form submission or a contact us on our websites if you do wish to volunteer or anything. And I promise you, if you donate to my campaign today, you will never get a text message or email asking for money ever again, especially in the middle of your favorite show.
Okay. All right, thank y'all for coming.
Like Michael alluded to, everybody's got to get involved. They've
Yes.
got to get involved. Precincts, volunteers, get involved.
Thank you, everybody.
Canvas.
Pause like at the end. I can send you the whole.
And it's amazing what we say.
How long did it go? Well, it's 7:40 now, and this text message came in at 6:50. We lost an hour and a half. That's not this.
Yep, love your message. Follow you on Instagram. Sorry about TikTok.
TikTok hopefully comes back.
We're there on Instagram. It's nice to meet you, Marcy West. Good luck to you. I'm not in your district, so I can't vote for you. A lot of people know a lot of people. I am in the district. Thank you.
Everybody tells me I've got a southern accent. I hope I can count it.
Good luck. I'm sorry, I'm in Pat Harrigan. I used to be mine, and then we had somebody else for a short while, then we had Jerry Andrew back in the
Thank you very much.
We're not in this.
It's okay.
It's okay, so might know something.
You might vote for
And I would vote for him. I would. Depending on what you said. It's just been my experience, my personal experience with the independent side. That's been my personal experience. I include what you said. You have to
Anyway, thank you so much again for coming out. We appreciate it, and we're gonna have a lot more. Where are you in the district? I do not.
Yeah, it's
Going around, I still have to my signature. Be knocking on the door. Camera low. They require 30,000
because they throw some out.
Thankfully, we don't have a kid tax.
Right.
The whole thing is not too much damn free.
And we have a screwed up board of election.
And it is still bipartisan.
Yeah.
Put in power by the governor's office, I believe.
Not now.
Oh, they took that away.
They took it away. Now, the auditor, and last year, for District 6, the guy trying to run independent, and they ended up changing the date, he had to be moved, and his didn't pay up to the date, and didn't let me. So don't wait till the last minute.
I was able to, as soon as I moved, because I OCD, I've got everything structured out.
Good.
I made sure to arrest it. Planning on this year, Carolina Constitution.
Yeah. Oh,
But yeah, I've got everything. Materials planned out. It's gonna be a lot. I know it's gonna be.
Good luck to you.
You guys drive safe. Hey, I'm sorry.
What?
Hey, you know what? So the first event, so good.
I'll definitely like. When I first came across you, I had no idea you were in like my vision. I was like, oh, like this guy's saying. Well, and then I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
Like 81 years old, 10 terms, 20 plus years in Congress, and has accomplished big old donut.
And my family loves me.
Why?
I'm the black.
Have you ever asked your family why they love you?
I have, but they don't give me much. All my family members that were Democrats and passed away. So it's like,
Next time you talk to your family, then like you say, what? Can you tell me what you guys are gonna make like? And then say, no, you won't vote Democrat, but you can ever consider voting for an independent.
I have never been.
because my family's all in
Federal?
so
I've been talking to a lot of Republicans without doing interviews. No idea who I am.
She is an embarrassment.
This says a lot. They won't vote them.
The same way. I asked her.
I do have a card, yeah, and I'll go to the website too.
I was like,
Yeah, I absolutely will.
Yeah, I would love
Thank you. I appreciate it. I was so happy to see that he was coming because like I've been following him for the better part of a year, if not a year or more. Like I said, I didn't know he was in the district. I was like, what? He's in my district? Yeah.